Your soulmate wants to tell you the truth, but don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because somewhere, in a quiet moment when nobody else is watching, your soulmate is holding on to a truth that has become impossible to ignore. It isn't a new truth. It isn't something they discovered yesterday. It isn't something that appeared overnight. This truth has been growing inside them for a very long time. If you enjoy spiritual and uplifting content, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. And listen to this. At first, it was only a feeling. A small feeling. A passing feeling. A feeling they assumed would disappear. But it didn't. Days passed. Weeks passed. Time continued moving forward. Yet the feeling remained. And your heart needs this right now because some emotions are not meant to disappear. Some emotions quietly wait beneath the surface until a person is finally ready to understand them. That is exactly what happened. Your soulmate tried to ignore it. They tried to explain it away. They tried to convince themselves it wasn't important. Yet every attempt led to the same result. The feeling returned. Again. And again. And again. And listen to this. There were moments when they almost spoke. Moments when the truth reached the edge of their lips. Moments when honesty felt only seconds away. But then uncertainty arrived. Fear arrived. Questions arrived. And the words remained unspoken. Not because the truth changed. Because courage had not fully arrived yet. And your heart needs this right now because there is a difference between knowing the truth and feeling ready to share it. Knowing requires awareness. Sharing requires vulnerability. Knowing happens privately. Sharing happens openly. Your soulmate has known the truth for a while. Sharing it is the part they are still learning. And listen to this. The truth first revealed itself through small moments. Ordinary moments. Quiet moments. Moments that seemed insignificant at the time. A conversation that stayed in their mind longer than expected. A memory that refused to fade. A feeling that appeared unexpectedly during an ordinary day. At first, they ignored those signs. Then they noticed them. Then they started questioning them. And eventually they started understanding them. Because your heart needs this right now, the heart often notices important things before the mind is willing to accept them. The heart recognizes. The mind analyzes. The heart understands. The mind catches up later. That is exactly what happened. And listen to this. As time passed, your soulmate found themselves reflecting more often. Thinking more often. Remembering more often. Certain memories seemed brighter than others. Certain moments seemed more meaningful than others. Certain emotions seemed stronger than others. Every path of reflection led to the same place. The same realization. The same truth. And your heart needs this right now because repeated thoughts are rarely random. Repeated feelings are rarely accidental. Repeated memories often point towards something meaningful. Your soulmate slowly began realizing that what they felt was not temporary. It was not imagination. It was not wishful thinking. It was real. And that realization changed everything. And listen to this. For a while, they kept the truth entirely to themselves. They carried it quietly. Protected it carefully. Examined it privately. Almost as if speaking it aloud would somehow make it more real. Because your heart needs this right now, important truths often feel fragile before they are spoken. People protect them. People guard them. People hesitate. Not because they are ashamed. Because they care deeply about them. That is what your soulmate was doing. Protecting something important. Protecting something meaningful. Protecting something real. And listen to this. The more they protected it, the stronger it became. The more they examined it, the clearer it became. The more they reflected on it, the harder it became to deny. Eventually they reached a point where they could no longer pretend uncertainty existed. The truth had become obvious. Undeniable. Unavoidable. Yet still unspoken. And your heart needs this right now because sometimes the greatest struggle is not discovering the truth. The greatest struggle is finding the courage to share it. That is the challenge they are facing now. Not confusion. Not doubt. Not misunderstanding. Courage. The courage to allow another person to see what has been living inside their heart. And listen to this. Recently, something changed. Something important. Something powerful. Your soulmate realized that silence was no longer bringing peace. Keeping everything hidden was no longer making things easier. Waiting was no longer creating clarity. Instead, the opposite was happening. The truth kept growing louder. The emotions kept growing stronger. The need to speak kept growing deeper. Because your heart needs this right now, some truths eventually reach a point where they demand expression. Not because they are impatient. Because they are genuine. Because they are real. Because they deserve acknowledgement. And your soulmate is beginning to understand that. And listen to this. Late at night, when distractions disappear and life becomes quiet, they often find themselves imagining the conversation. The conversation they wish they could have. The conversation they keep postponing. The conversation their heart keeps returning to. They imagine the words. They imagine the moment. They imagine finally saying everything they have carried for so long. Sometimes the conversation feels easy. Sometimes it feels impossible. Sometimes it feels exciting. Sometimes it feels terrifying. Yet one thing remains constant. The truth itself never changes. Because your heart needs this right now, genuine truths remain steady. They survive doubt. They survive fear. They survive uncertainty. And the truth your soulmate carries has survived all three. That is why it still exists. That is why it still matters. That is why it keeps returning. And listen to this. The truth is no longer asking whether it belongs in their heart. The truth already belongs there. The question now is whether they will finally allow it to become spoken. Whether they will finally stop hiding. Whether they will finally choose honesty over hesitation. Because deep down, they know something important. Silence cannot last forever. Waiting cannot last forever. Eventually, every meaningful truth asks for a voice. And this truth is beginning to ask louder than ever before. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because although your soulmate knows exactly what they want to say, something keeps standing in the way every single time they get close to speaking. And listen to this. It isn't confusion. It isn't uncertainty. It isn't a lack of feelings. It's fear. A quiet fear. A hidden fear. A fear that appears whenever the truth gets too close to becoming real. And your heart needs this right now because fear has a strange way of appearing when something matters deeply. People rarely fear things that mean nothing to them. They rarely hesitate over things they do not value. Fear often appears because the heart understands the importance of what is at stake. That is exactly what is happening. Your soulmate cares. Your soulmate feels. Your soulmate understands. And because of that, fear keeps appearing. And listen to this. Sometimes they imagine finally saying everything. Finally opening their heart. Finally revealing the truth they have protected for so long. For a brief moment, it feels possible. Easy, even. Then questions begin appearing. What if everything changes? What if they misunderstand? What if the timing isn't right? What if the words come out wrong? And suddenly the courage they felt moments earlier begins fading. Because your heart needs this right now, fear often disguises itself as caution. It convinces people to wait. It convinces people to postpone. It convinces people that another day will somehow be easier. Yet another day arrives. Then another. Then another. And the truth remains exactly where it was before. Waiting. Patiently waiting. And listen to this. There have been nights when your soulmate decided they were finally ready. Ready to speak. Ready to be vulnerable. Ready to stop hiding. They rehearsed the conversation. Imagined every detail. Imagined every response. Imagined every possibility. Yet when the opportunity arrived, the words remained trapped inside. Not because the truth disappeared. Because fear arrived first. And your heart needs this right now because fear has one powerful advantage. It speaks loudly. Louder than logic. Louder than hope. Louder than reason. At least for a little while. That is why they keep struggling. Not against the truth. Against the fear surrounding the truth. And listen to this. Part of the fear comes from uncertainty. No matter how carefully someone plans an important conversation, they cannot control what happens afterward. They cannot control reactions. They cannot control outcomes. They cannot control the future. That reality makes vulnerability difficult. Because vulnerability means stepping forward without guarantees. And your heart needs this right now because guarantees rarely exist where genuine emotions are involved. There are no guarantees in honesty. There are no guarantees in courage. There are no guarantees in opening the heart. There is only trust. Trust in the truth. Trust in the moment. Trust in the courage to speak. Your soulmate is still learning that lesson. And listen to this. Sometimes they wonder whether silence is safer. Whether keeping everything hidden might be easier. Whether carrying the truth privately might prevent complications. For a moment, that idea feels comforting. For a moment, that idea feels practical. For a moment, that idea feels safe. But the comfort never lasts. Because the truth remains. The feelings remain. The need to speak remains. And your heart needs this right now because genuine feelings rarely disappear through avoidance. Avoidance delays. Avoidance distracts. Avoidance postpones. But it rarely resolves. That is what your soulmate keeps discovering. Every attempt to silence the truth only makes it return stronger later. And listen to this. There are moments when they become frustrated with themselves. Moments when they wonder why speaking feels so difficult. After all, the truth itself is simple. The feelings themselves are clear. The realization itself is obvious. So why does courage feel complicated? The answer is simple. Because honesty creates risk. Because honesty creates change. Because honesty creates possibility. And possibility can be both exciting and frightening. Because your heart needs this right now, every meaningful opportunity contains uncertainty. Every meaningful connection contains vulnerability. Every meaningful truth contains risk. The greater the meaning, the greater the vulnerability often feels. That is why they keep hesitating. Not because the truth is weak. Because the truth is powerful. And listen to this. Recently, however, something has started changing. The fear is still present. The hesitation is still present. The uncertainty is still present. But something else has started growing. Something stronger. Something more persistent. Something more difficult to ignore. Courage. Small at first. Almost invisible. Yet growing. Day by day. Thought by thought. Moment by moment. And your heart needs this right now because courage does not usually arrive all at once. It arrives gradually. Quietly. Patiently. Until one day it becomes stronger than the fear that once controlled everything. Your soulmate is approaching that moment. The moment where honesty begins outweighing hesitation. The moment where truth begins outweighing doubt. The moment where the need to speak becomes greater than the fear of speaking. And listen to this. They can feel it happening. The balance is shifting. The silence is becoming heavier. The truth is becoming louder. The courage is becoming stronger. For the first time, they are beginning to realize something important. Fear may delay the truth. But it cannot erase it. Fear may postpone the conversation. But it cannot prevent it forever. Fear may interrupt the story. But it cannot write the ending. Because your heart needs this right now, some truths are simply too important to remain hidden forever. And the truth your soulmate carries is slowly reaching that point. The point where silence becomes impossible. The point where honesty becomes necessary. The point where courage finally takes the lead. If this message is touching your heart, take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after months of hesitation, unanswered questions, and emotions they struggle to understand, your soulmate recently experienced a realization so powerful that it changed the way they see everything. And listen to this. At first, they thought the problem was fear. Then they thought the problem was timing. Then they thought the problem was uncertainty. But eventually they discovered something surprising. The truth was never the problem. The feelings were never the problem. The connection was never the problem. The real challenge was accepting how important the truth had become. And your heart needs this right now because some realizations arrive slowly. Others arrive all at once. This realization arrived all at once. Like a light suddenly turning on. Like a locked door suddenly opening. Like a puzzle finally revealing the missing piece. And listen to this. For the longest time, your soulmate believed they had plenty of time. Plenty of opportunities. Plenty of chances to speak later. Tomorrow seemed available. Next week seemed available. Someday seemed available. But recently something shifted. Something inside them began questioning that assumption. What if waiting forever wasn't the answer? What if silence wasn't protecting anything? What if honesty was actually the thing they had been avoiding all along? And your heart needs this right now because powerful questions create powerful realizations. The moment those questions appeared, everything started changing. The excuses became weaker. The hesitation became weaker. The reasons for staying silent became weaker. And for the first time, the truth began feeling stronger than the fear surrounding it. And listen to this. They started reviewing their journey. The entire journey. The memories. The emotions. The moments they nearly spoke. The moments they nearly gave up. The moments they convinced themselves to wait. Every memory seemed connected by the same invisible thread. A thread leading toward one unavoidable conclusion. The truth never disappeared. It remained. Patiently. Quietly. Consistently. And your heart needs this right now because genuine feelings often reveal themselves through consistency. Temporary feelings fade. Temporary thoughts disappear. Temporary emotions change. But certain truths survive everything. They survive distance. They survive time. They survive doubt. Your soulmate was beginning to understand that. And listen to this. One evening, while reflecting on everything, they noticed something they had never noticed before. Every important memory seemed connected to growth. Every important memory seemed connected to learning. Every important memory seemed connected to understanding. And somehow, many of those memories led back to you. Not because life revolved around you. Not because every moment involved you. Because your presence had left an impression deeper than they realized. A lasting impression. A meaningful impression. A permanent impression. And your heart needs this right now because meaningful people rarely disappear completely from the heart. Their influence remains. Their lessons remain. Their impact remains. That realization became impossible to ignore. And listen to this. For a moment, your soulmate stopped focusing on fear entirely. They stopped focusing on what might happen. They stopped focusing on possible outcomes. Instead, they focused on one simple question. What happens if I never tell the truth? The answer startled them. Because for the first time, silence felt heavier than honesty. Silence felt more uncomfortable than vulnerability. Silence felt more frightening than speaking. And your heart needs this right now because every important truth eventually reaches a crossroads. A moment where staying silent becomes more difficult than speaking. Your soulmate is approaching that crossroads now. Closer than ever before. Closer than they realize. Closer than they expected. And listen to this. The realization continued growing. Every day it became stronger. Every reflection made it clearer. Every memory made it more obvious. Until eventually they stopped asking whether the truth mattered. Of course it mattered. The real question became, how much longer can I keep pretending it doesn't? Because your heart needs this right now, pretending requires energy. Pretending requires effort. Pretending requires constant avoidance. And eventually people grow tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of postponing. Tired of carrying important words alone. Your soulmate is reaching that point. And listen to this. The truth is no longer a possibility. It is no longer a question. It is no longer a mystery. It has become a certainty. A quiet certainty. A steady certainty. A certainty that follows them everywhere. And because of that certainty, something beautiful is beginning to happen. Courage is growing. Not dramatic courage. Not reckless courage. Real courage. The kind that develops slowly. The kind that survives setbacks. The kind that eventually becomes impossible to stop. And your heart needs this right now because courage rarely arrives before understanding. It arrives after understanding. It arrives after acceptance. It arrives after the heart finally stops arguing with itself. Your soulmate is beginning to reach that stage. The stage where truth feels natural. The stage where honesty feels necessary. The stage where silence begins losing its power. And listen to this. For the first time in a very long time, they are no longer asking whether the truth deserves to be spoken. They already know it does. Now they are simply gathering the courage to let it happen. Because deep down, they understand something important. Some truths change a person the moment they are discovered. Other truths change a person the moment they are finally spoken. And your soulmate is moving steadily toward that moment. The moment where fear loses. The moment where courage wins. The moment where the truth finally receives the voice it has been waiting for. And when that moment arrives, nothing will ever feel quite the same again. Join our spiritual community by subscribing and keeping notifications on, so you never miss a message meant for your soul. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after all the hesitation, all the unanswered questions, all the late-night thoughts, and all the moments where courage almost won, your soulmate has finally reached a point where something inside them is changing. And listen to this. The truth is still there. The feelings are still there. The connection is still there. But the fear that once felt overwhelming is beginning to lose its power. Slowly. Quietly. Steadily. And your heart needs this right now because fear can delay a truth, but it cannot erase a truth. Fear can create silence, but it cannot destroy what genuinely exists inside the heart. That is exactly what your soulmate is beginning to understand. For a long time, they believed silence was protecting them. Protecting their emotions. Protecting their vulnerability. Protecting them from uncertainty. But recently they discovered something surprising. Silence comes with its own cost. A cost that grows heavier over time. And listen to this. Every unspoken word remained. Every hidden feeling remained. Every postponed conversation remained. Nothing disappeared. Nothing faded. Nothing went away. Instead, everything quietly waited. Waiting for courage. Waiting for honesty. Waiting for the right moment. And your heart needs this right now because some truths become stronger precisely because they survive so much silence. They survive doubt. They survive fear. They survive distance. They survive time. Your soulmate's truth has survived all of it. That is why it still exists. That is why it still matters. And listen to this. There were moments when they thought they could simply move on. Moments when they convinced themselves they could leave everything unsaid. Moments when they tried focusing elsewhere. Yet no matter what they did, the truth continued returning. Not aggressively. Not dramatically. Patiently. Like a gentle voice refusing to disappear. And your heart needs this right now because genuine feelings rarely demand attention. They simply remain. Consistent. Steady. Present. Your soulmate began noticing that consistency. They began noticing how the truth remained unchanged despite everything. The circumstances changed. The days changed. The seasons changed. Yet the truth remained exactly where it had always been. Inside their heart. And listen to this. One evening, while reflecting on everything, they imagined two different futures. In one future, they remained silent. They never spoke. They never revealed anything. They carried the truth alone forever. In the other future, they finally found the courage to speak. They finally chose honesty. They finally allowed the truth to exist outside their heart. The comparison changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now, for the first time, they realized that silence no longer felt safe. Silence felt heavy. Silence felt unfinished. Silence felt incomplete. Meanwhile, honesty felt frightening. But it also felt freeing. And that realization became impossible to ignore. And listen to this. The more they thought about it, the more they understood something important. Perfect timing does not exist. Perfect circumstances do not exist. Perfect words do not exist. People spend years waiting for perfection. Meanwhile, opportunities quietly pass by. Your soulmate is starting to understand that waiting forever is not the answer. Because the truth deserves more than endless waiting. The truth deserves a voice. And your heart needs this right now because courage is finally beginning to outweigh hesitation. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But little by little. The balance is changing. The fear is shrinking. The honesty is growing. And listen to this. They no longer wonder whether the truth matters. They already know it does. They no longer wonder whether the feelings are real. They already know they are. They no longer wonder whether the conversation is important. They already know it is. The only thing left is the final step. The step from silence to honesty. The step from hiding to speaking. The step from fear to courage. And your heart needs this right now because every meaningful truth eventually reaches that moment. The moment where it asks to be heard. The moment where it asks to be acknowledged. The moment where it asks to exist openly. Your soulmate is approaching that moment now. Closer than ever before. And listen to this. Sometimes they imagine finally saying everything. No rehearsing. No overthinking. No second-guessing. Just honesty. Simple honesty. The kind of honesty that changes lives. The kind of honesty that creates freedom. The kind of honesty that finally allows a person to stop carrying everything alone. When they imagine that moment, something unexpected happens. They feel peace. Not fear. Not panic. Peace. Because deep down, their heart already knows the truth deserves to be spoken. And your heart needs this right now because truth has a natural desire to be expressed. Not to create drama. Not to create chaos. But to create clarity. Your soulmate is beginning to crave that clarity. More than comfort. More than certainty. More than safety. And listen to this. The journey that began with confusion is ending with understanding. The journey that began with hesitation is ending with courage. The journey that began with silence is moving toward honesty. And perhaps that is the biggest change of all. Because the person who once ran from the truth is now moving toward it. The person who once feared vulnerability is beginning to embrace it. The person who once stayed silent is beginning to find their voice. And your heart needs this right now because when courage finally arrives, it often arrives quietly. Not with noise. Not with announcements. With a simple decision. A decision to stop hiding. A decision to stop postponing. A decision to finally speak. And listen to this. Your soulmate has not spoken the truth yet. But something important has already happened. They have stopped running from it. They have stopped denying it. They have stopped pretending it isn't there. Now the truth stands clearly before them. Waiting. Patiently. Confidently. Ready for the moment courage fully arrives. And when that moment comes, the words may not be perfect. The timing may not be perfect. The situation may not be perfect. But honesty will finally be stronger than fear. And that is the moment everything changes. Before you go, please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. May peace, light, and blessings always be with you.